Welcome to In the Funnel. My name is Mark Cox. In the Funnel is a group of sales coaches and consultants that help B2B sales teams dramatically improve revenue. Clients come to us when revenue growth is stagnated, or their sales team is not meeting expectations, or they need to recalibrate their sales and go-to-market plan for the upcoming year. Our clients have enjoyed tremendous success working within the funnel, and please hear it straight from them by listening to the testimonial section of this website. What they'll tell you is there's two things that make us unique and different in our space. Number one, we have a process and a methodology. First, for understanding your current state, and then second, for building your sales and go-to-market plan for the upcoming year. The second thing that makes us unique and different is that everybody within the funnel has run a material sales organization in their recent past. We're all practitioners. We don't have any theorists or teachers, and what that means is we can get in front of your sales team and run the next sales meeting, or join them on their next sales call to close your next large prospect. All of us have a passion for professional, disciplined, process-driven sales, and we'd be delighted to talk to you if you're looking to grow revenue for your company. Please feel free to reach out to us through this website at info@inthefunnel.com or by telephone. Thanks for taking the time to watch this.
On the reverse, especially if you're in a services only company, the only thing we have going for us is our reputation and our referrals, right? And the word on the street. And if you did stuff that you weren't a fit and you knew you really couldn't help them out, and then that gets out, that they did a horrible job, if they didn't know what they were doing, all of a sudden now you've got a mass issue on your hands, and your business and everybody associated with your business may be out of a job, right? So as a salesperson, is that what you're going for? Hopefully not.
Hey folks, we've just got a great show today because today our guest is Sally Duby. And Sally has been named one of the top women in sales. She's also been named one of the most influential women in sales. She is absolutely a pioneer in the field of virtual selling and inside sales and sales development. Sally is the Chief Sales Officer with the Bridge Group, and that's where she's done most of her work in the field of inside sales. Many of you will know that name because the founder, Trish Bertuzzi, wrote a spectacular book, which our show is a big fan of, called The Sales Development Playbook. So if you're out there in sales development today and you have not read the Sales Development Playbook, that's a mistake. Go buy that book and read it today. But today we get some real value from the conversation with Sally. She's extremely deep in the space. And what I like about Sally is she's current, knowing where this space is going, with a strong focus on making sure that we don't just leverage technology to have more lousy conversations. We actually enable our sales teams to have strategic conversations with the people they're reaching out to after research has been done, and we understand their point of view so we can help them achieve a better future. It sounds so easy when I spew it quickly. This is so hard to do well and really hard to train well, particularly when we're scaling our companies at the rate we're scaling. And much of Sally's work is done in the tech industry in Silicon Valley, so she's on the front end of many of these topics. I was extremely impressed, felt very fortunate speaking with Sally today. I'm sure you're going to enjoy today's podcast. And if you do, please like and subscribe to the Selling Well podcast, because that really matters to us. And by the way, if there's ways we can improve this podcast, you let me know that too. I'm Mark Cox at inthefunnel.com, and I love constructive criticism, and I personally check that voicemail. So send us your notes. We'll take it to heart. But here's Sally Duby. Hey, Sally, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Mark, for having me. I'm very excited to talk about one of my favorite subjects with you.
Well, what an important subject. by the way. And, as everybody heard from the intro, you folks at the Bridge Group, experts in this space, have been so for years. One of the absolute sort of foundational books on this topic was the Sales Development Playbook by your teammate, Trish Bertuzzi. And so that's why I'm so excited to talk to you about today, because this function is still critically important, but continuing to evolve, right?
Yes.
So it's always evolving. Now we got the tech stack in there and other things, but you folks do great research, Sally. So let's just start with the function overall. What are some of the things you're seeing out there, kind of key trends that we should be thinking about as we all go into 2022 when we're recording this podcast and really looking to emerge stronger from these turbulent times?
Yeah. So the SDR topic is one that just continues to, as you said, not only evolve, but it gets bigger and bigger. And I would say 70 to 80% of my conversations every day with sales and marketing leaders are all around either building an SDR team, which seems kind of interesting that companies are just building, but they are. And how do we optimize our team? How do we take it to the next level? How do we properly scale it? And outbound is certainly continuing to become a really hot topic, a trend, but doing it right is a totally different thing.
Yeah.
So there's still a lot of companies that haven't quite perfected outbound prospecting, but yet it's critical, especially for those companies that are selling into the upper mid-market or the enterprise.
Right.
It becomes your lifeblood to build the right amount of pipeline. And still making sure that you're aligned properly between sales and marketing is still always trending. That hasn't changed in 25 years.
Has it ever worked smoothly between sales and marketing? Have they ever partnered up well?
There are definitely some companies where they've done a really good job. And I would say I was extremely fortunate very early on in my tech career, as well as in inside sales and sales development, to work at Oracle. And in those really early days, we had such a great symbiotic relationship, and marketing was really there to serve and support sales, and it worked tremendous. And, I will say in those early days, Oracle didn't have the best product on the market by far.
Right.
But we had awesome marketing that was aggressive and always out there. And we had an awesome sales team.
Also aggressive.
Yes, it was extremely aggressive, very well rewarded. And so as long as we knew we could talk and not get into a side-by-side demo or comparison, we would win the deal every time. Well, and so it was really a true, it was a great relationship. And that's where I really understood the power of what sales and marketing could do together.
How critical. And by the way, it's so, one of the things we always say is it's so important that somebody's actually lived through sometimes larger enterprises that had spectacular training and development. And it's so common to come across folks like yourself who took that training and then just evolved it and maybe took it even slightly down market, because those companies struggle much more. And I'm sure, Sally, you saw that, that foundational research way back in the day. This was really important for our company, where the Chally Group did the research before the Challenger sale that said 39% of the time a B2B purchasing decision favors the company that sells better versus the company that had the price, quality, or service features.
Right.
And I know everybody likes to roll their eyes a little bit with, research in sales sometimes, but they had 100,000 different data points for that research. And then Harvard published it in a quarterly business review. So it really meaningful to that point. And I think a lot of companies always get caught up on, or salespeople, well, if we did a detailed spec comparison, we might not have the best product. The best product and beauty is actually in the eye of the beholder, and you actually influence what they see and how it actually applies to them getting a desired business outcome.
Exactly. That was well said, Mark. I really enjoyed that. And I had the beauty of working with another company after Oracle that was fairly enamored with their product. And they did have a really great product, but they didn't have a good marketing engine and they did not have a good sales team that was
Right.
aggressive, that could compete against Oracle. And consequently, nobody knows their name anymore today.
Right. Nothing more common than, a situation where the best product didn't win.
Exactly. And I think that's a great learning lesson for a lot of tech founders
Yeah.
that tend to be more technical in nature than understanding the sales and marketing side. And often they look at the sales and marketing side as necessary evils because they've got a great product and it's going to sell itself. And I like to call that the field of dreams marketing.
Well, you might see more that I know you spend so much, you're from Silicon Valley. So I know you probably see more than that than us. We end up coming in as kind of sales enablement folks and consultants. So usually what happens with us is that's tech CEO has started with that belief, learned it's not true, tried to build their own sales organization a couple times, and then went, okay, we got to try something differently here. We need some outside help to come in and set things up. So if we circle back to this whole function, because so many key questions in 2022 for sales development. One of them would be, you said they set it up properly. So there's these companies out there that don't have them, or that they've got them but they're not functioning well. Our experience exactly the same, Sally. You're spot on. Yep. Correct. There are companies who still don't have an in-house sales development, and maybe they thought they could outsource it. I'm interested in your opinion on whether that works in a second. But let's talk about setting it up properly. What does that mean for some of the people listening to this podcast, the CEOs, the sales leaders? Even if they have an existing team, what are the key elements of setting up that sales development program properly?
Yeah, so it's really having somebody, first off, that understands it and gets it at the detailed level. There are many sales leaders or even marketing leaders. Oh yeah, I've had SDRs report to me before, but they never got their hands dirty, and they have no idea really how to make it work. What does it take to make it work? And they don't necessarily know what good really even looks like. And we find that with a lot of early stage SDR managers as well, is that they don't know what good looks like. And so you have to be able to understand what good looks like to be able to create it.
Right.
And so, it really does take this is not rocket science, but there is a method to the madness, is what I like to say. Okay. And it starts with understanding the strategy, the goals and objectives. How much pipeline is the sales team looking at you to contribute? Yeah. And what's it going to take to develop that? And what kind of pipeline, right? You got to know your ideal customer profile. Right. You've got to know your buyer personas. Right. Right. And you've got to understand what the value is that you bring to that buyer persona. And that's what your messaging should be about. And there really does need to be prescriptive modeling in place for those. If you ever hear an SDR leader say, well, I only hire smart people and they figure it out because we wanted to sound human and natural. Yeah. Really, you should probably run at that point, to be honest with you, because that's why we're called in and brought into all these companies to take their teams to the next level, is because there is no prescriptive process. There's nothing that's repeatable and scalable, and they're not making their numbers because they're allowing the sales team to figure it out for themselves, or the SDR team, I should say. You absolutely you're so right. You need that guidance. And I know you won't do it, but I'm happy to do the plug. If people out there are wondering about the, where would I go to learn a little bit more about this? The sales development playbook
that came from Trish and the Bridge Group, so good for this. If
Thanks,
you're not
yes.
deep in this space, it really is
It is.
walks through all of the key elements, the key components. It's an excellent book. And it still resonates today. And lots of things are changing. But the core of what I think is such an important point to bring up, Sally, is I think one of the things today, because there's so many of these SDRs going back and forth and churning jobs,
Yes.
and particularly in your world in Silicon Valley, so much venture capital money, and we build these farm teams of SDRs. I think they're all very good. The ramp up is so quick, and they may quickly understand how to leverage some sales tech, all great, but all of it's really intended to initiate a live conversation, and they can't have a live conversation. And by the way, it's not an easy thing to do. The tech is the easy part.
Right.
But the live conversation, and I think it all starts with understanding that, buyer persona, which is just who are we? What's the life of the buyer I'm selling to? What's their environment like? What are they dealing with? And this is why you folks are experts. I think it really is important to say, before we worry about anything, let's teach these SDRs about that. Almost a little mini MBA, first of all. Who's the company we're calling? What are the issues they're facing? How do they measure success? How do those things cascade down to the person I'm actually calling?
Yep.
What is that person trying to deal with day in, day out? What's important to them and why? If we just know a little bit about that, we should know a lot. But if we know about that, I think we might have this chance of breaking through the wall and initiating some compelling discussion. But if we don't know about that, then pitching a product, nobody cares.
Yes. Well, and I that's a great point, because what we see in tech, the onboarding programs, no matter if they're for SDRs, they're for your sales reps, they're for other functions within the company, are very much focused around me as the company, right?
Yeah.
And the vendor themselves, how great we are, our product, our features, our functionality, the awards we've won, our investments. And there is very little, if any, conversation around, again, our ideal customer profile, those problems. When's a good time for us to get in there? What are our buyers concerned about? Who are our buyers? And what their day in a life is about, and how important is this to them? And what kind of outside research do we have that may back up that this is a critical, important point for them? And how to craft messaging that then addresses about our buyer, especially in outbound prospecting. When you are outbound prospecting, you have to show that company that you know them, you understand that person, I should say, that you know them, you understand them, and it's about them. It's not that, hey, we're the largest in this space and we just closed a deal with Microsoft that they may have nothing in common with Microsoft.
Right.
And we want to show you a demo. Who cares?
Right.
Right? That person is not going to care what you did for somebody else. And they're not going to want to see a demo because you haven't established any value that you're bringing to this company as to how you're going to help that person. How are you going to make their life better? How are you going to improve, their stature within the company, or get them that next promotion, right? Or take care of headaches that they've got. So we really, when we go into companies, we switch the conversation again. So it's not about you as the vendor. It's about your problems and how we're going to solve those problems, right? And so until we can get everybody understanding that, and this is where we have problems with, if you hire smart SDRs that are right out of college, if you're selling a security product, do they even know that there's a chief information security officer, what a CISO does? No, right. They have no clue. So how you would expect them to figure out what problems that buyer has and what your value is to that buyer, and again, business value that you're going to bring, That's where things fall apart.
Yeah.
And where there's not an understanding of what it takes to make these SDRs successful. And that's why being prescriptive while you're teaching them these things is going to get them ramped quicker, producing results, get them excited and motivated. Hey, I'm doing good, while I'm learning to be able to eventually do it at some point on their own.
Well said. And, kind of the key message, I think, from today's podcast for sure, which is we have no right to reach out to anybody unless we understand their world and them. And it's personalized. And we can get that point of interest that resonates. Not, hey, we went to the same college or university and, drank at the same bar.
Right.
Which we probably did if you went to my university. But really, I understand what you're going through. I'm reaching out because here's why I'm reaching out today. I've noticed A, B, or C, and these trends are actually having a real impact on D, E, and F. Wanted to talk to you for 15 minutes about how we're helping companies exactly like you emerge stronger from these turbulent times by addressing these things. And our belief is, and I know the book is so wonderfully prescriptive, but we do two things with new folks we're training, even at the SDR level. One is kind of the mini MBA, because what I did not understand about business, when I exited university the first time, could have filled the metaverse. And so I remember, and I'm ashamed to admit it, but when I was selling technology in the very early days, the first technology out there was huge photocopiers. And I can remember being so happy. I thought I was pretty good at it, and I knew my demos, and it was all face to face and going into companies. And I remember being in the lobby, in these companies, and I'd see the name of the organization, and I was literally thinking to myself, gee, I wonder what this company does.
Yeah.
It's so sad to look back on it. I was so ignorance is bliss, and believe me, I was extremely happy. So you look to where we are today, that's all gone. Nobody has the right, nobody has any time to do. We want to engage. Let's understand that buyer. Let's understand how we can add value. No one cares about what we sell. They just care about their desired business outcomes.
Right.
We'll talk about the onboarding plan again in a second, Sally, but one thing just even on the left side of what we just discussed, we talked about onboarding. Just before that, tell me a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of churn in this role and recruiting in this role and growth in this role, because I've been, in professional sales for, 18 years. I have never seen a recruiting, all of our clients, we're trying to find salespeople and SDRs for them. I've never seen so much demand and so little supply.
Yes.
It's unreal what I'm seeing out there in the marketplace. What are you experiencing?
Yeah, exactly the same thing. There was a period of time, early 2021,
Right.
and in 2020, when the pandemic hit, that we saw churn in the SDR for the first time in many years, actually decrease. But, but it was during the pandemic, there was a lot of unknowns, especially in 2020. There was a lot of people getting laid off.
Yeah.
Both sales reps as well as SDRs. And so, people held on to jobs. They didn't do the normal churn. And of course, there wasn't as much hiring going on, if any, actually, then for a period of time.
Right.
And then in early 2021, we started to see, okay, we've settled into this. We know the earth, the bottom's not falling out, that life is going on. Right. While we're still dealing with the pandemic, and business is going on and actually booming in a lot of cases. And so people started churning and recs started opening up. And again, people are expanding SDR teams. We're working with a whole bunch of groups right now that are trying to go from 10 or 20 up to, they're saying like 50 or 60 by the end of the year, or people that are at 50 are expecting to go to 100 by the end of the year, which is awesome. But again, the supply is low. And unfortunately, some companies aren't looking at what is my career path for SDRs, which is
Yeah.
a big one. I also think some of that is we do it to ourselves, because I've never seen another role where you hire for it and say, oh, by the way, if you don't want to be out of this role within a year, we don't want to hire you. I mean, we don't do that in engineering. We don't do that in finance. We don't do that in sales roles. We don't do that in marketing. So we're setting up an expectation right from the beginning that, you need to move out of this role. And so I think that's a mindset issue that we also need to figure out what to do about. But so we're setting these people up thinking they need to advance in their career, but yet you don't have a sales model, maybe where you can go right from an SDR to a field sales rep that is selling $200,000 technical complex deals. So what do you do, right? And so you need to give that some thought and figure that out and show that there is a progression within the SDR role that they can do, but there's a lot of other options besides moving into sales, which, oh, by the way, a lot of these SDRs do discover once they get into the role and they start seeing what salespeople actually have to do and what they have to do as an SDR, where they're like, you know what? Sales isn't for me. I want to do something else. So being able to give them other opportunities outside of moving into a sales team is also a really desirable thing. So they can move into maybe account management, customer success, and doing renewals. They can move into operations. They're really good, maybe enablement for SDRs, which most companies don't have specific enablement for SDRs. They give you what the sales team gets, which a piece is applicable, but a whole bunch isn't. So there's a lot of different roles outside of the sales rep that you should be considering SDRs for.
And when we start to think about, one of these SDRs coming on board, the way you mentioned it, 100 people, they're building out their team to 100. It seems highly unlikely that all can, progress into a sales role. The outside team is not going to be 100 deep, likely. But lots of these options for progressing. Back prior to the onboarding plan, and I know, Sally, you're one of the thought leaders out there, period, in doing this and building and recalibrating these teams and elevating performance. When you come in, whether you're helping them build a team or whether you're taking a look at an existing team, what are the 3 or 4 attributes that you're looking for in an individual that might, tell us, hey, they're going to be successful as an SDR?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. Ones that they're not afraid, if you will. So one of the big things that we do know is that to be successful in the SDR role, it's not all about email, right?
Oh, for sure.
You can't hide behind a screen. Even in today's world, especially in today's world, when email reply rates and responses have plummeted and fallen out the bottom, you need to do a multimedia approach. Phone is a big piece as well, especially if you can get cell phone numbers. And video, right? LinkedIn, potentially, depending on your audience. So you need to be able to use all those mediums, especially, again, the phone. And so not being afraid to pick up the phone, which we do find a lot. So again, getting over that fear, having people say no to you, or being able to qualify people out is just as important. Being able to establish that rapport and relationship and being able to ask questions and having, again, you heard this a lot, but the curiosity. Do you want to know more about that person, or are you just set up, I want to tell you all about us and I want to set a meeting and move on?
Right.
Not going to work well, right? So having that determination, the grit to stick through it. Again, it's not an easy job. And so be willing to try different things. And again, let things roll off your back.
Yeah.
when you get no's, when you don't hear from people, you know, having the mindset it's their loss because we could really help them out and make their life better.
There's such a key mindset, you know, and that's where I love the way you folks always connect the dots. If we actually understand that person's world and their business environment and how we can actually get them to a better future, and then we also start with adding some value, whether it's insight or research or expertise. We don't have to create it. Our marketing teams can help us, or our coaches can
They
help
should
us. Then I absolutely think we can start to move toward the mindset that says, hey, I have a reason. I have a reason for this call. This is not B2C marketing.
Right.
So if you're selling me a credit card at home during Sunday dinner, that's one thing.
Yeah.
Maybe there's chagrin. But if I'm actually reaching out to a CEO to talk about elevating the performance of their sales organization, we've got some research that backs it up, that changes can be made in a given year that could have a dramatic impact, and training as a path to get there, or consulting will get there, then I actually believe that I've earned the right for that call. So I haven't earned their business.
Nope.
But I have something to offer. And by the way, their job is to understand things that can help get them to a better future.
Right.
If I can communicate that. So I think you're absolutely spot on, and it helps with that mindset.
Yes. And it helps making sure that every one of your outreach attempts, again, is along that mindset and providing that value and making it seem like you are an expert. And again, this is where having that prescriptive messaging, because your typical SDR is not going to have that value and that understanding because they're so early in their career. And it's understandable. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But this is, again, where that prescriptiveness and that the marketing alignment is so critical, that marketing should be providing these kinds of insights, this kind of information and messaging along the way as well.
Absolutely indisputable as well, Sally, that, you know, your comment about voicemail. So I tell you what, maybe there may have been a window that I missed sometime in the early 2000s where you could have maybe tried to stay behind a screen, but that's over now because of all of the sales tech out there. 300 billion emails go back and forth every day. Every day. We're just getting pummeled. It's all spam. You know, 45% of it, according to, you know, the powers that be, tech powered sales with Tony Hughes and Justin Michael, 50% of it's spam. Standing out so hard. But today, I mean, I'm listed as the CEO of In the Funnel. And so, you know, we do get demand generation. We get a ton of marketing emails that hit us. Very few voicemails. So probably, and there was a day you and I will remember where we'd be leaving the office with 30 voicemails, 40 voicemails.
I get zero. I get
like one or two a day. And by the way, I really want them. You know, email generally makes me sad and a voicemail generally makes me happy. But, you know, email always feels like negative work for me.
Yeah.
We have to play, you know, have to play the odds. And you folks do such a great job in the playbook, in the development playbook, of mapping out, you know, this was the early days of sequences. You guys shared the early days of sequences. Now what we've got is we'll have lots of different A/B testing on lots of different types of sequences. But still your same fundamentals are so spot on. And voicemail being a key part of it, and then breaking through the wall with an articulate value proposition and a point of interest. So these are some of the things that I think everybody listening today, I think we all continue to struggle with it. And we're trying to figure out, how do we evolve? How do we get live conversations, by the way, in the day, you know, in these turbulent times? So this is, I think, in our view, I'm interested in your opinion, but there are some sales techs out there and that stack is just exploding.
It's crazy.
And man, should we have ever invested big in a couple of those players? And it was just screaming at us. But there are those techs out there where I can take, hey, my name on a list I got from Zoom. And by the way, but by the time people hear this podcast, the text will have changed. But I'll take my name from Zoom. You know, I'll do some cleansing through LinkedIn Navigator. I might have another third party like Lucia help out. So now I
Yep.
got a cell number, now I got the right email. I'm looking for an intent signal. Maybe they've been searching online for sales training. We find that for the company. Maybe they put their hand up digitally. Maybe we got a trigger in Google Alerts or Sales Navigator. So there's all of these things that can help. But even Tony Hughes and Justin Michael, right in their great book, Tech Powered Sales, they come out and say, you have to be able to have a conversation. All of this stuff is just going to trigger a conversation. And so, exactly what you're saying, Sally, when the time comes and the moment of truth is there, we need to be able to have a valuable conversation.
Right.
Hey, question for you. With everything you see, I know you see dozens and dozens of companies across, we've talked a lot about tech, but correct me if I'm wrong, you work across all verticals. So you do lots of different industries. Is that correct?
We do. But I would say most of our focus is on tech.
Most. Thank you.
Yeah.
So with all of that, okay, with what you're seeing out there today, what's your view on outsourcing this function?
So a great question. We have worked with a lot of really great outsourcers. I will tell you though, outsourcing, you have to set up your outsourcer just like you would an internal team. If you think the outsourcer can come in and understand and create your unique value messaging and propositions and all of that, you're wrong. and you have to manage them on a regular basis like your manager would an internal team. And again, this is where companies don't do it. They think I can hire an outsourcer. They, through osmosis or whatever, are going to understand everything about this and do this right. And that doesn't happen. So the more you work with the outsourcer to make sure they're set up for success, that they're doing a prescriptive messaging, that it's value-based, it's by buyer persona, it's into the right verticals and saying the right things, and that you give them the training, that you also give them your playbook, that you have a manager that can coach them, listen to recorded phone calls on a regular basis. That's how you make outsourcing work.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we don't see those kinds of relationships happening. So most of the time when you're talking about outsourcing, you don't get a lot of good comments. And it's not really the outsourcer's fault. It's, you as the client are not enabling them properly and giving them the content, the information that they need to be successful and ongoing, right? So, but I would challenge you that creating pipeline is your key to sales success. And I was just talking with another company yesterday. We were talking about what does it really mean to scale? Mm-hmm. Well, for many companies, unfortunately, they think scaling means I'm just adding a bunch of bodies. Well, that is a small piece of it. Right. But how you make, if you're growing your sales team and you're adding bodies, how are they going to be successful? Well, the way they're going to be successful is if they have pipeline. Right. We have a saying here at the Bridge Group that pipeline cures all sales ails. Yeah. Or ills, I should say. And, so how are you going to increase your pipeline? And so to me, building pipeline is really a critical success factor for a company and a critical competitive advantage once you get it locked in. Yeah. And so I wouldn't necessarily outsource that until I knew how to do it properly. And maybe it's additional bandwidth, or you have some key events coming up where you need some special attention to, and I don't want to take my eye off the ball with my internal team. Yeah. Right. To do that outbound prospecting. So I'm going to have an outsourcer as my, extra resources and capability, but I've got everything already dialed in on how to be successful, so I can do that easy handoff. That's personally how I see using them appropriately. Well, I think how could you debate any of it? So I think it's great. It's great feedback, Sally. The thoughts that jump out to me, and we get this question a lot, and we have no opinion one way or the other. So sorry,
being me, I have a huge opinion. I should say this.
I was going to say, wait, come on,
I have a
Mark, maybe you've got an
ridiculously large
opinion.
opinion, actually. I have an opinion that really should be a lot small. We do have strong opinions on almost everything, but what I meant to say is we're not tied to it one way or the other. You know, we're not an outsourced SDR and we're not against it. But when I look at that model, the way you explained it very articulately, all that work you're doing to enable the third-party outsource company, you're going to be doing that at some point in time. You're actually training their people who make the calls, but you have no control as to whether they leave that outsource company.
Right.
So they leave. Now I'm into this whole thing all over again with the next person. And so you start to look at it and say, well, if I'm building my own team and I can manage, I have a bit more control over the retention.
Yes.
And, you know, to the extent it's possible, I may also have a farm team for my sales team, maybe, or a farm team for marketing coordination, maybe. So I'm bringing in the type of talent that I want within my company. I do think people need to think long and hard about this. And absolutely your counsel about you can't outsource all the hard work associated with it, because no one can do this without a huge amount of support from you.
Right.
Basically, they need your whole playbook.
Well, exactly. We actually do work with a lot of clients that want to outsource for whatever reasons. That, you know, I mean, sometimes we have clients that, you know what, we're really different as a company. And so we're not sure the SDRs are going to work for us.
Yeah.
So we want to outsource it. And, you know, how can you help us? And so we become that project manager for them. We develop the playbook. We listen to the recorded phone calls. We make sure they get the training. We make sure that the metrics are what we should be getting right after ramp up. And so we, again, enable the outsourcer to be successful, and we continue to work with them. And we do play that role a lot to make sure that there is success. Again, it's more costly, but it's a much better route for making sure you will be successful, that you're not just leaving it up to chance. And I think that a couple of your comments were so insightful, Mark. The retention that we are seeing at these outsourcers, it's a big issue because they typically don't pay like a tech company. And so once they get some experience under their belt, they're being recruited away big time.
Yeah.
The other thing is that if you do have a sales model, an SMB market segment, right, an account management market segment that you are hiring for, this is a great bench that you should be grooming for and keeping that, you know, within your company. And so if you don't have it internally, you are missing out on some great talent that you can develop and move on to other roles.
Yeah, so great, Sally. And then, you know, the last thing I might even think about or add to the mix is that prospect database is so very important to us. And depending upon you and your business and your industry, you know, if we're into some of the examples you used, mid-size tech deal, 200K, depending upon the size of my target market, I may be reaching out to, you know, Bank ABC today. And if it doesn't work out, I'm going back to Bank ABC 4 months from now.
Right.
So just making sure that we handle these leads with care.
Yes.
You know, professional demeanor, professional messaging, that first impression of us and our business, so critically important. The call recording, really important. I just want to make sure if they've never heard of us before, that first impression is so important, because they're going to say, wow, this is either a credible outfit or they're not.
Exactly. Exactly. And that is awesome, because it is so important. It's not only that you come across with that impression that, you know, you're not just trying to be that horrible salesperson and sell them something, but you can add value, you know what you're talking about, but also you can be really straight and you can develop that trust in a relationship. So I just recently had my first call with the company, and they were explaining what they were interested in. And, you know, I had to say, I'm sorry, we're not a good fit for you.
Right.
That's not where our area of expertise is. And the CEO was so appreciative. I can't tell you how many times that he was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for being straight. And, I think at the end of this year, we're going to be doing this, which you guys would be perfect for. And you can bet I'm going to get back to you then. Right. So you really do establish that trust and credibility when you can even take an approach that maybe a lot of young SDRs are like, oh my God, that would be the worst case, where I would say we're not the right fit, but it's the best thing you can do. And the sooner you point that out, the better off. So you're not wasting both of your time.
Oh, so true. Thank you. And it ties into this thing about almost this approach and mindset for professional sales. I think this is something that got lost in we're exploding our SDR teams, for a number of years, and we got to grow. I think these poor young people, in many cases, because most of them were starting their careers in sales, they get confused that sales is cajoling something anybody, persuading, the trickery.
Right. Yes. The trickery more important. Yes.
Yeah, God bless the executive recruiters that still reach out now and then market so-and-so, no company name, just a name, and the trickery.
Yes.
And if I have one message to anybody ever listening to a podcast, this is a profession, as you mentioned, Sally, I happen to believe that revenue growth fixes a whole lot of problems for a whole lot of companies. And my friend Dan Sullivan from a company called Strategic Coach likes to say, if you can write a check for a problem, it's not a problem anymore. So I love that statement. Dan Sullivan, Strategic Coach, got to give credit.
That's awesome.
But when these salespeople, when you're coming on board and you're being, coached and onboarded, remember who you are. You're a business professional. Assume what you're doing or the actions you're performing. It's like somebody who's a second cousin or friend of your mom's. And so we behave professionally. We tell the truth.
Right.
We're honest and upfront. We're proud of the value we can provide. And if you can't be proud of the value you can provide with the company you're with, this is the only time I'm going to tell you, leave the company.
Yes.
Find the company that you actually understand the value they provide and you're proud of it, because this is a profession and it's a really important one. And by the way, it feels really good to help people. And that's what really sales is. Helping somebody, fix a material business problem in a way that's beneficial to them first and then to you.
Yes.
And, so be yourself and feel confident that you can add that value. And by the way, I always hear those stories, Sally. It happens to us all the time, where somebody asks for something, and there's certain niches we work very well in, and there's certain ones that they're just not for us. And we'll give them the name of who they should call, and they're so appreciative.
Yes.
And we only want our ideal customer profile.
Right.
So it's good for them. It's good for us. All positive.
Yeah. Well, and just think, on the reverse, especially if you're in a services only company, the only thing we have going for us is our reputation and our referrals, right? And the word on the street. And if you did stuff that you weren't a fit and you knew you really couldn't help them out, and then that gets out, that they did a horrible job, if they didn't know what they were doing, all of a sudden now you've got a mass issue on your hands, and your business and everybody associated with your business may be out of a job, right? So as a salesperson, is that what you're going for? Hopefully not.
I don't think we could end on a better phrase. So whoever's editing this podcast, that was the multi-million-dollar soundbite. So that was if we all started there, and all training started there, and all new onboarding plans started there, our whole profession is way better off. That was awesome, Sally. I can't believe it, but we're at the end of our time.
We're at the end of our time. This has been so much fun, Mark. Thank you so much. I love talking about this.
What an amazing pleasure talking with you, and so much great learning. Hey, Sally, so if somebody listening to this wants to learn more about Sally Duby, wants to learn more about the Bridge Group, what do they do?
Yeah, so you can reach out directly to me on LinkedIn. I'm at Sally Duby, which is Duby, and same at Twitter. or you can also just go to our website, which is bridgegroupinc.com. And there's a lot of great free resources. We don't charge for our data, our research. There's a lot of white papers, blogs. We have a blog with actually, again, a lot of really great information around sales development as well as virtual selling. And so feel free to reach out on any of those. We'd love to chat with anybody.
Fantastic. And by the way, folks, that research is stuff we leverage. So lots of great research online from the Bridge Group. One of our favorites in terms of the library, the Sales Development Playbook. And I would really like to thank Sally Duby from the Bridge Group for joining us here today. It's been a wonderful, wonderful podcast. And I really want to thank all of you for listening. And if you enjoyed today, please like and subscribe to the Selling Well podcast and let us know how we're doing. Leave us a review, send me a note, markcox@inthefunnel.com. There's lots of ways we can get better. You know what they are. Let me know what they are. We want to make sure that these things are valuable to you. So thank you all for joining, and we'll see you next time.